All right, I think we are ready to rock and roll here on this stream. We're either 1 minute late or a half an hour early, depending on how you look at it, because this accidentally got scheduled for 8:30, and it's snowing like crazy outside. And as a matter of fact, I'm kind of late because I took the dog for a walk. The snow level is more or less an inch above where his belly is, so he was bunny hopping all up and down the street, and his fuzzy hair got a bunch of little snowballs in it, and he was freaking out a little bit when we came inside, and it took a while to towel him down. But nevertheless, we are here, and we are going to be doing some Sublime texting, so let's not waste any time, even though, as we'll see, might have been a good idea. Hello, everybody. I confused myself. I was looking at the live replay, which is 30 seconds slow. Hello, everybody. OdatNurd here. Welcome to tonight's live stream. We're going to be working on a little bit of override audit type stuff. And as we can see, if we look at if I give the focus to the correct window and apply the correct keystroke, we can see I got a few things in here and not a lot. And the reason for that is the weather was pretty crunky today. Didn't get to do as much planning as I wanted. I did think of some things I wanted to do, and then I thought, I don't know if I want to do those in version 1 of the package, because the whole idea of coming up with OverrideAudit version 2. Hang on a second, my headset cord is driving me crazy here. Maybe that'll work a little better. Yeah, there we go. As I was saying, the whole reason of switching to version 2 is there are a lot of new features that I want to add to this, and that includes things, as we can see on number 4 here, pop-up help, which is an interim until hyperhelp is done, but I also want to be able to have hover pop-ups for things, and that's all stuff that requires functionality that's not available in the version of Sublime that OverrideAudit version 1 is currently targeting. I do not like the idea from a maintainability point of view to have a code that is only functional when certain version requirements are in place. I mean, it starts off being easy, and then as time goes on, it starts to get more and more complicated, and before you know it, you're accidentally slipping stuff in that you didn't mean to slip in, and it's bad news for everybody. So I'd rather just not do that. And so we're going to do all of those in version 2, which is also nice because the version of the code and the package that is here, as we can see, is primarily this one monolithically large plugin file. It is a gobsmacking 1,400 lines, almost 1,500 lines, not counting things like this lib folder here with the code for our output view that we use for all of our displays, the code for the packages library, which is nice and tight, and our utilities and our threads. And really like the layout of the newer code better. It's going to be easier to maintain overall. So that's some of the stuff I don't want to do in version 1 when I could do it in version 2. And I don't want to do too much in version 1 before we cut over to version 2, because everything I do in version 1 has to be ported over to version 2 before stuff can continue there. So we don't want to do hell of a lot of stuff in that particular case. So we're going to see what we can come up with for things here. Just because I don't want to really do those things. I didn't have a lot of chance to decide what else I really want here, except for number 3 in the list, which is investigate submerge integration. That's something I'd really like, because I do use that package, even now with Sublime Merge being what it is. For example, if there were some added lines here and a lorem Well, that's not going to work in this file, is it? No, it's not. That's a bummer. But, well, anyway, if I did that, I have a key binding that just automatically opens Submerge, showing me the diff. And the nice thing about this is it's a side-by-side diff right in Sublime, as opposed to an external tool. I can see the whole file, unlike in Merge, where it will only show you hunks. I can use arrow keys to go between, and I can use the arrow keys in combination with Control to copy lines from one side to the other. I can even edit inside these files if I want to. So this is something that my workflow for a long time in Sublime was using the Git package. As a matter of fact, I may still have this bound. This key binding opens up this, and I would use that to add a file. It'll prompt me for the ones that I need, and I would use this key binding to check a file, make sure it's okay, stage it, go on, and then commit from there. But I haven't done that in a while since I've been using Sublime Merge, sorry. Those things sort of confuse me from time to time. As a matter of fact, I was switching over from using that package. I was in the process of setting up to use Git Savvy instead and trying to get myself more comfortable with that workflow when I got selected to help test out the beta version of Sublime Merge. And so I stopped that and have just been using that ever since. I'm just going to go ahead and I still do use this from time to time as a quick way to revert files, however. So I'd like to get that stuff done too. And so I don't really have a lot of stuff planned for the night for that very reason. So that's why I thought, I accidentally scheduled the thing for 8:30 instead of 8. That might actually give me some time to think of some stuff. And then I thought, what the hell? Let's just roll with it. And speaking of rolling with it, terrible segues. If you like to roll along with new videos with me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to my other channel, link in the description below. Thumb the videos if you find them helpful. And remember, if you have any questions on Sublime Text package development or Sublime Text itself, I might be able to help. Leave a comment in the comment section below any of the videos or hit me on Twitter at OdatNurd. Fancy key binding to create lower third to show that off. Not available, and I will try to help you out. And as a side note, I've also been working on creating some videos for custom build targets and how they work, and I had a draft all ready to start being cut up, and then the latest dev build caused some problems, and I rewrote some of the code so that it would work with that version. Now I don't know if I should release I don't know if the changes to Sublime are going to be permanent or if they're going to roll them back when they see the scope of things. That's stuff for us to get in later. But anyway, that's also something to look forward to. So I thought the first thing I might do here is show off the changes I made to the code, because after the last stream, you'll recall I was making changes to the code and making just small one-line commits so that you didn't have to see me typing out a long commit message in the code. And once I was done, I was going to go back after the stream and flesh all those config messages out. And we also know that partway through, at the beginning of last week's stream, I was having problems with this. Oh, my caps lock is on. This log functionality. Oh, I guess I'd have to look in the appropriate file, wouldn't I? Yeah, this log functionality here is in this OverrideAudit file, but then I was looking at the threads file and I added the thread for being able to do the diff over here, and this one needs to import this one needs to import that one. That's not going to work because that's a circular dependency, so I boosted the log code out into another file, and then as I was getting into the meat of the code, I realized I should not have done that. I should have done it another way. So when I went back to change the config files, I twiddled the code around a little bit and cleaned it up a little bit so those things aren't there. So let's go ahead and look at what actually happened in those last stream. And as a matter of fact, the stable version here is version 1.1.2, which came out on January 21st. This had some bug fixes in it that were actually already fixed in version 2. And they were backported to version 1 as a way for me to be more familiar with the code. And then we started in on version 1.2.0, which is theoretically supposed to be the last point release before we switch to version 2. And for that, I wanted to get external diff support in some fashion just before I ditch people, if you will, quote unquote, ditch anybody that wants to or needs to, I hope needs to, run criminally old versions of Sublime Text. I know there are a lot of people out there that ignore the uh, notices that say that they should upgrade. I don't know if that's because they're paranoid about that or they're doing something sketchy to block Sublime's nag thing and they're using an older version of Sublime and they're just not finding out that there are new versions. I don't know, but as a professional developer, do I want to support an old version of code for people that are using a version from 2 years ago? No, no, I don't. So the first thing we did was include a new setting. Now this has actually kind of changed a little from what we might have remembered from last time. And we'll get to that part in a bit. But this external diff setting, essentially, it is a Boolean value. When its value is false, external diff is turned off. When it's an object, then it's turned on, and you can use shell command, working dir, and such in order to uh, specify a command to execute externally to execute a diff, and it has its own variables for override and base that represent the override file and the base file respectively, so you can pass them to whatever external command you want. After we implemented the setting, we had to go into the package classes and add functionality to extract the contents of a packed and unpacked override. Now, technically speaking, we only needed to get this top one here, the one that tells you the contents of a packed override. And packed override, really what that means is the packed part of an override. It's kind of a misname, except that it lines up with all the other naming of things in here, which means basically that if you have an override of a file in a Sublime package file, this gets the content of that file out of the zip file and returns it back to you as an array of lines, primarily because the internal diff uses the Python diff library and needs that particular format. And it also tells you whether it was an installed package or a shipped package because some code needs to know that. And I added one to get the unpacked contents as well, just because I already had a helper internally to do that. So I like to keep my APIs orthogonal. And I also fixed some docstring and comment type problems. I think that one's a docstring. That was considered an escape character, and the highlighting was driving me crazy. And then we moved on from there to include a helper for override extraction. And now this is in the actual OverrideAudit code itself. And given a package info, which is a special structure that represents all the information on a package, which includes its name, whether it is the name of the shipped package that ships with that it has, if any, the installed package it has, if any, the unpacked folder name, if any, whether or not it's a dependency, whether or not it's ignored, all of the contents of that, if it for the purposes of overrides, once that's calculated, that's a lazy thing. You take one of those, you take the name of an override, which is a full resource path rooted inside this package, so it wouldn't have, say, packages override audit in the front of it. It would just assume, because it's from this package, that it's content in there. And this will use those API functions we just created and create a temporary file on the hard drive out of them in the temp directory, which can be controlled by the user by the use of environment variables that they can set up if they so choose. The name of the file is the name of the override or the package resource with initial name of shipped or installed, depending on what kind of package the base was. And it also makes that file read-only because some external diff tools take a cue from the file being read-only and stop you from editing that file. And that's something that we want to have happen, because anybody that tries to edit the temporary file will be unhappy when they discover that the code throws it away when it's done because it's a temporary file. So that's a little bit of a hint. If your diff program knows not to, or automatically makes a file like that read only, you'll get an extra hint that you should not modify that file. And then we added a new threading class. Now, this code here is the external diff thread, as we can see that's in the lib threads, which spawns a diff in an external process waiting for it to complete. And this does all the work. Basically, this code is more or less the code from async process in the default package with a bunch of it stripped away because we do not care at all about capturing output from these things. And we also have the ability to use platform specific things and inserting some extra variables before we expand them out. And now we have actually implemented an appropriate diff command here, which in the context menu, it's named open external diff. That's not there, it's in the command. Here we see open diff externally in the command palette in certain cases. Here it's in the tab context menu. That means it happens when you click here, you can see it appears there. Even if this file isn't the currently focused file, it also works like there as well. And notice the focus is still over here. That's the magic of making that work. We actually document this packed override thing that we implemented in a previous commit because we forgot, but we pushed it up. And here's a thread for our end that actually captures all of the two files and runs the external program. And once that's done, we're implementing the change log for saying what actually happened. So this one actually is the thing that implements the code, and the code has been shifted around somewhat. Now, I would have thought that I decided that, yeah, I did, that some of that code should not actually be in that threads type code. Oh, I see. Yeah, I saw something that made me think it was in a different file. So yeah, in the original stream, this was put in the threads code, but now as we can see, oh yeah, because I fixed that line up there, I didn't note that header there. This code, when I implemented it in the stream, was in the threads code. I would rather have it in the OverrideAudit, so that code shifted there. Then we implemented and updated the change log and the README to mention, so version 1.2 released some point over external diff type functionality, and we have a new command and a new setting, so those are documented in the change log. Now this stuff is not yet officially released, so it's not in the official documentation yet. And here, this is something that I actually discovered apropos of nothing at all here in OverrideAudit. And because we need to kill time, let's go to look at the exec code. Now, without going into, let's say, hide that too, a ton of detail on this code, the exec command is the one that's used by build systems by default to execute a build, but you can also use it to execute external programs. And it takes a fair number of arguments. You might recognize a bunch of these as the files that are arguments that you would see in a Sublime build file. It also catches a path and a shell using this keyword args. And after doing some stuff here, it does this. It says, if nobody told me what the working directory is, and there's an active view, i.e. this file, this window that the build is happening in has a tab in it, and that tab has a file name, then make the working directory be the path name of that file name. And then later on, that is passed. If we go way down here to async process, oh sorry, here it's change to the it changes the working directory. If it's not an empty string, it changes to that working directory. It passes everything else to the async process, and the async process is the code up here. This is what actually spawns the external program. It spawns the threads that are used to read the standard out and the standard error, and the two of these things talk together. Now, there are a few problems with this that I noted, and I created issues for on the GitHub issue tracker for the core. And one of these was actually something that I mentioned in that stream, and I could not remember how to trigger it, and then I did remember how to trigger it. So one thing is this: the exec command takes an optional argument called path. It's not one of these required ones, it's an optional one. Now, this is not actually documented in the official documentation. I suspect that this is a holdover from back when, before shell command existed. I believe build systems had command and shell. This thing here, command is an array of strings instead of shell command being one string that is the command line to pass to the command interpreter. You can also pass a shell argument, and as we can see up here in async process, shell defaults to false, and there's special code here. So if you're using a shell command in your Windows, then do this with shell is true, and if you're using shell command on Mac OS, then use this to always use the user's figure out where bash is. Use that regardless of what shell they have implemented. If you're on Linux, do the same thing there. And for old style build systems, it uses command and uses the shell argument that you provided. And that just tells the underlying popen call whether it should use the command interpreter or try to open this thing on its own. And one issue with this code is the following. If you pass this optional path variable here, and so what we can see, what this code in exec does is it saves from the environment the path that's currently set for Sublime. Then it modifies the path to be the contents of that path argument that you provided, and expand vars here is something that makes the Python runtime expand all the $blah variables in the path as environment variables, say, to spit it out. And as we can see, an example of that might be that, so that you can say path equals $path colon, and then, slash home slash bin, or whatever you want to do to temporarily do something with the path. Then it executes with subprocess popen. And lastly, if it got a path, it restores the path to what it was when it started. Well, one issue with this is when in the specific case of this one, where it's using command instead of shell command, when shell is false, the underlying Python code in subprocess popen assumes the first item in the array of strings you pass is the name of the name of the program to literally execute. So it just goes and says, hey, operating system, run this program. If that program doesn't exist, subprocess popen throws an error, it throws an exception. Now we'll note here, this line happens after that line. It's not in an except. This isn't in a try. Down here in the actual exec code, this call is guarded with a try except. So if you used shell command with a shell of false, and the first argument is something that can't be found, and you modified the path, now this is all a specific concatenation of circumstances, then async process will capture the current path, set it to be some path that you provided, and then generate an exception, jump back to here, skipping over the part where it restores the path. So now the path for Sublime is forever altered, and I say forever with finger quotes because you have to quit and restart it to get that to be reset. And that's particularly a problem in the case where you used path to set, say, just a specific path. Like for this, I'm only running one program, and I know it's in this path. I'm going to set that. But it's not in that path. now the path for everything is just always broken. I noted that happening. So what I actually did when I was fixing up this code in here and moving code around that I did in the stream, I redacted the ability of that code to use path, I think, unless I did that here. Yeah, I did that here. Okay. So one of the things I did was that I removed the ability to use path because we have env. You can set the path that way, and that way is more safe, if you will. So you can see those lines in our version of the code are now gone. Another problem with that particular code, as it was implemented, and this isn't a problem with exec per se, but I was expanding variables in all of the arguments, and that is actually not correct because the only arguments that are supposed to get those things expanded are the shell command, the command, and the working dir. Those are the only fields in a build system that can expand variables. And in particular, because the environment variables in the env var look like variables, this would clobber them. So I fixed that. But at the same time, there was this other problem with build systems in um, oh wait, did I do that twice? No, I think I did something else. I moved its position a little bit, yeah, so that I could do that part. Because we have to expand the variables in the working dir. I put that code here as a part of that. The code here in the working dir, oh, sorry, that's this one. Used to say this, and again, we actually look at it over here in the exec command. If I went in the correct direction, it was probably faster to do that, wasn't it? The default command says if there's not a working directory specified and the window has an active view and that view has a file name, then the working directory is that file name. Then after it does some more setup, it calls the change dir if it has a working directory to set the working directory to that path. Great in theory, bad, for example, if I ran the build right here, because if I said self.view, view.filename, this buffer has a path that represents what this file would be called on disk if it existed, but it doesn't. It was loaded from a packed file. So if you run a build here that doesn't have an explicit working directory, the build fails because this path does not actually exist, and the change dir call throws an exception. And I thought about that for a bit. I logged that on the official tracker, and I solved that problem here by specifically saying if there is no working directory and there is an active view, then get that path that would be, which might also be an empty string if this view doesn't have a file name, and only set that as a working directory if that path exists. Which is probably not 100% correct because it should maybe make sure you have read access to the thing, but probably you do if the file actually exists there. This just makes it so that if you were to run a build in a situation where you didn't specify a working directory and this file has an invalid path, it doesn't explicitly break your build. I would say personally, I like the idea that it infers that working directory, but I don't want it to infer it at the cost of my build fails, and the only way for me to find out is to open the console and see. So I reported that as well. And one other thing I reported is just this. Self.debug text in exec is the stuff that you see in the build that tells you what the shell command and the working directory and what the path look like when a build fails. This is captured here, and then async process executes, and then an error happens here or later. And when that's the case, that's an issue because the path here is going to look like it does in the build because the thing that expands variables in the environment is actually in exec. It's not here. So that's one thing. And also, if you were to use in exec, if you were to use path, that will modify the path, but it's not actually reflected in this thing. That's not something I reported. That's something someone else reported back in 2015. The two things are sort of samey. So what I actually did there was guard against non-existent paths by making that particular check. Now, That managed to blow 30 minutes. That's the complete rundown of this code. And I thought it might be interesting to show for people that aren't familiar with sort of the process, if you will, how I go about creating a release. And I actually have a checklist over here. But we can start by, if I was to do this and bring a tab over here, if we went to package control and looked for override audit like so. We can see this was last modified 3 weeks ago. It was last seen 58 minutes ago. There's actually a process on the package control website that crawls the entirety of all of the packages, and it goes and looks to see if there's a new version and updates things. So that says 58 minutes ago. If we're quick enough about how we do this, we might be able to see this before the stream goes. We see it's version 1.1.2. So the first thing I would normally do is update readmes on in the package for the for the purposes of this. I believe I may have already done that. I'm not sure. Let's go. No, let's do this. Oh, hang on a second. Remove our handling and support for a direct path. So yes, I believe there is OpenDiff externally is in the README, and the setting is in the thing. So the README is up to date. I'm going to check that off on a little checkbox. The README is up to date with the new functionality in this build. Now the next thing we need to do is the changelog, and you notice I have that already stubbed out as version 1.2, and I have that code there. So we can put the date in here, which is 2019-02-10, I think. Yep. So the changelog has been updated. This is just something that's in the package so that we can keep track of all of our changes. And I'm going to also copy that. Now there's a web version of this in the documentation as well, but we're going to do that part later. Next, for this I will open this command palette. There's this folder here. In our channel entry for our package, we have specifically mentioned, or is that actually part of the channel? Let's look here. Okay, I guess it's probably not. Okay, but in any case, there's a few files in here. One is messages.json. We're going to update this 1.2.0. Now this is something that is used by package control. Messages.json, when it exists and it upgrades a package, it uses this to figure out what messages it should give the user to tell them what has changed. Some people like this, some people hate it with a passion. I happen to like it. I like to keep up to date of this. And actually, this one is used the first time you install the package, and these ones are incremental updates. If you were to install the package today, you would see all of these as I understand the mechanism, so you can see the entire history for the package. So this is saying when version you update to version 1.2.0, this is the message to provide. So that's this over here. So let's go ahead and save as that to version 1.2.0. Thusly, so now we have a new version of that, and here what we would actually do is, oh, let's say that's one line, okay, like so. We can actually just, oops, that's not the key I meant to press. Remove that part out. There was one line there. Now it looks like I actually have a different wrap size here. I have 63. It was probably 70. So just for the time being, let's change the ruler to say 70. So I can wrap this as appropriate. Oh, that did. And this is just because this appears, oh, that's actually might still be a little long. It's the longest one there. I'm gonna err on the side of caution and do it thusly. And the idea of this is when package control displays this stuff, it's going to indent it a little bit. So we want to make sure that everything that is in this file looks, nice, if you will. It doesn't word wrap if word wrap is turned on. So that is the messages.json file updated and the messages.text file having been updated. Now, let's double check. Our code is in the actual code. It's being mentioned in the README. It's mentioned in the change log. We can see it right there. It's been mentioned in a new file in in the messages folder as the version 1.2, and the messages.json file represents it there. So what we need to do is come over here and find, we'll jump out of there to this, copy that, and we want to check in this code for the change log having changed. So we'll stage that file. And the messages.json changed, so we'll stage that file. That looks like valid JSON to me. And for untracked files, we still don't care about that one, but we do want to stage that, and then we can do this. And maybe we'll actually, let's say, spell that correctly instead of being a boob like the other one. This includes this introduces the ability to run an external diff program in order to see the results of an override diff in the tool of your choice. This is controlled via a setting by which the user can specify exactly what program they want to execute in order to do the diff and what the command line for that tool should look like. Got to get rid of all of that code. And what else might I say? At the present time, this functionality is in the command palette and the context menu of diff views with wording that indicates that you can open this diff in an external tool. A future version might update this to make the original diff open in that tool or something similar. Okay, and then we go ahead and commit that. Now this is our legacy branch of the code, and the release policy says that once we have done this code, we need to merge this legacy code into stable. So let's say we jumped over to the stable code and then merged legacy into stable. And let's see, I'm okay with the fast forward commit here in this project, at least in the version 1 code, because that's what I've been doing up until now. So let's go ahead and do that. So now that code is merged and I can push it up. We'll push it to origin first, which is a local server. And then we'll also push it to GitHub, like so. Pushing stable to GitHub. So now that code is available on GitHub as well. And do I have a quick tab for that? No, I don't think I do. Do I have something over in this window? Oh, maybe I could actually do one from here. Let's say, like so. Let's see. That one. Okay, that tab will do. We'll bring that tab over here and join it into this window. So here's the stable branch was updated 1 minute ago, so we can go over here to releases. I'm going to edit that. And, well, yeah, we'll keep one of those. What we're actually going to do is just use this as a template. I'm going to go down here and I don't want to do either of those things, to be perfectly honest. So let's go back to releases and say draft a new release. And this is 1.2.0, targeting the branch stable, because that's the stable code. And this version, I guess, would be version 1.2.0 on February 10th, 2019. Paste that. And then we could come over to here and say this. Do we even need to say that? No, we don't. I guess probably what we want here is this, because that's what I was doing in the other one as well. Changes in this release. Paste that. I believe I probably would have done that thusly. I don't know that that actually matters, but I like to be consistent. We can get rid of all of that. And here we might say, this is the first release of a version of OverrideAudit that supports opening a diff override in an external tool of your choice. There are some plans to potentially enhance this functionality before the code in the 1.x series is I didn't say anything there, is it? Is put to pasture in favor of a new 1.2.x series. And now we go ahead and do that. So if we preview this, we see that our version is version 1.2 targeted at stable, saying that this is the first version of that. We don't need any binaries. We're going to publish that release. And now there is a version 1.2. And over here, if we reload this, it says it was last seen an hour ago, and that's 1.1.2. Sometimes the crawl is supposed to kick off once an hour, but sometimes it takes a couple hours or more, because literally for every package, it has to go to the GitHub page, look to see if there are any new tags, see if there's a new version, update things as appropriate. Sorry, the dryer just stopped behind me, and it's singing its little song of dried clothes. So that version is ready to roll now, per se. Now there's a little bit more work to do here, and for that, I'm going to switch to the OdatNurd.net Sublime project, and we're going to, well, I guess we really don't need to do that, do we? We just need this part, I think. And this would be version 1.2.0, and the section title is 1.2.0, and the date, of course, is February 10th. And once again, we totally need that stuff we were just looking at a second ago. So this might actually have closed an issue on my issue tracker, come to think of it. But we won't worry about that here. What we will do is that, and soup. And this should be wrapped in a tag. Do I remember how to do that? Code. Let's wrap that one more time. Okay, and then we need to close that and close that. And we need to go up here a little bit because this was now updated on February 10th, 2019. And down here near the bottom of the file, we need to do that as well. So let's say 1.2.0 and 1.2.0. Is there a better way to do this? Probably, but as we can see overall, the history of this package, which has been quite a while, there haven't been that many releases, so that's neither here nor there. And then I do this, and that's going to slowly wend its way through those, updating some stuff if we're lucky. And we can go over here. Let me check my issues. Do I have a clean up, refresh, No, I didn't have one for that. These are some of the features that are planned for version 2. As you can see, they've been around for a while. Some of these I'm not sure how much I should do with them. In particular, not sure about complete overrides. That's basically if you were to create a python.sublime package and put it in the installed packages folder, because there's a shipped package by that name, that's a quote unquote complete override. Sublime completely ignores the shipped package and uses yours instead. So all overrides are based on that file instead of the shipped file. We support that already, but here support for complete overrides means that it would actually be able to tell you what your override of the package is overriding from the shipped package. This one is problematic because things might break if you ignore them while you're fiddling with them. So I'm not sure how that might play out. Let's go ahead and go back here and we can see it transferred the changelog up. So theoretically, if we did this, and then looked at full documentation. If you didn't know, there's full documentation. It's not quite full because the configuration and the commands for this aren't listed in here yet, but we can only do so much. But if we click here, we can see there is a version 1.0. We can go all the way back to the first version where the initial release happened, and 1.2 takes us to there, and we can see what happened and then that setting happened. So that's nice. That's the merge to stable and tag and the web readme. That's all of the steps for a release, well, except for updating the documentation. So there's that. We can go ahead and I think exit out of that. And here I might, whoops, open that repository and stage that and say include a changelog for the 1.2.0 release. I should also point out that you didn't see me doing any testing for this, but I spent a few hours throughout the week testing this on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux using a variety of diff tools like Meld, which I tend to use for everything. The diff tool that ships with Xcode on the Mac OS, whose name escapes me at the moment, looks ugly as hell though. Beyond compare. I tested all the platforms to make sure the code was gonna work the way we want. So I'm pretty confident that this is gonna work. And if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world per se, because you can just turn that functionality off. It's not that kind of a breaking change, or at least it shouldn't be. So can include a change log for the 1.2.0 release. Now here's something we might actually have some fun with. If I would have to take this back, I guess, to here. That is still not there. It's very common when you're working with uploading a package that you constantly come here when you've done a release and keep clicking this refresh button to see if it's happened yet. Kind of surprised that that still says 1 hour ago, to be perfectly honest. It usually counts up a little bit better than that. Maybe once every, for all the times I've clicked it, I mostly just paid attention to other stuff. Okay, so that is oh, I didn't actually commit that, did I? I have one unstaged. Oh, I'm in override audit still. Right. Okay. Phew. This is the file I was looking at. Unlike the last release, let's remember uh, this right away, but forget to update the documentation instead. Oh, we'll just go ahead and do that. And commit. And push to origin. And push to GitHub. And that is done. So we can come back to here. We're done with that part. I'll have to come back to there later and do the documentation, but that's not anything anybody wants to see, let alone do. Let's jump back to the override audit code. Now that's 1, show off changes made to code. That's 2, release a new version. I did remember to refer to the checklist. Go me. So now we have about an hour left in this stream. If I can last that long, because I kind of tweaked my shoulder, my left shoulder a little bit with the walking I was doing. It's been quote unquote very cold, and by very cold I mean not cold at all per se. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so here it's considered cold when it's a couple of degrees below 0 Celsius, which is like 28 degrees or something Fahrenheit. Can't remember off the top of my head. So not the end of the world, but it does mean that when I go out walking, I have my hood up to keep my ears warm because it's been very windy. And walking with the hood tends to really tweak my shoulder because I'm hunched. So my shoulder hurts a little at the moment. I think I can stick it out though. So again, the next thing to think of is investigating submerge integration. This is something I'd like to do. I mentioned this in the last stream. It'd be neat if, well, I guess it would have been neat if I had fixed that file when to have the same indent as that one, huh? But that's neither here nor there. And that and that. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, just so we can see the excitement of stuff happening. We reload this, that's still there. Okay, so let's go ahead and quit that. I'm going to open a console. I'll use this one because it's bigger writing. And if I go to temp Bob, Sublime Text 3189, this is a separate version of Sublime. This is the code for that's going to, well, the basis of code that's going to be in the video that's upcoming soon. Whoop, what did I do? A custom build. Well, actually, I could probably just do this. Look, if you're watching this, you're getting a sneak preview of the video. And the idea here is there's a custom build here. I don't know why word wrap is turned on. Oh, because the screen size is so much smaller now. That's right. The build here, as we can see, simulates an error message. We can also do it with a failing one, in which case when we do the build, we get all of this business down here too to show that that works. This proves that our version, when you open a file that has error messages, will still show you the error, and we can also do that, and that part works as well. And if we did the, whoops, reopen that, and did this with the delayed, while it's delayed, we can come up here and cancel build. The build says it's canceled, and here in the console we can see that all the errors that were found every time we built, we knew that the build was canceling, we knew that the build completed with a fail, we knew the build completed with a success, we saw the arguments, everything you need to create a custom build system. This is something that's going to be in a video that's fairly upcoming. But I'm going to install OverrideAudit over here. I would have thought. Oh, it's already installed, isn't it? Okay. That would be okay. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that's cool. So this version is just going to sit here for us, and if we see this jump to version 1.2, we can restart that version and see the package being updated, which is something I wanted to do, not necessarily just to show that that's how that would work, but also because I've been having problems with Sublime crashing on upgrade. So if I remember, I can start it in a way that I can see the console if something goes wrong. So we can go ahead and start the normal Sublime that I use. And again, if we looked at that, investigating submerge integration. So, whoops, generate command list. Here's all the commands that are available in Submerge. And of course, they're not really documented. Compare paths, compare revision to revision. Submerge, compare selected files. Compare selected lines. Compare to. Now, what I'm looking for. We're going to have to go to the web documentation. I just wanted to sort of take a look at this first. Show changes in revision. Show changes navigator. There's version. Test merge. Maybe there's some exciting new functionality in this package that hasn't been implemented yet. Version 2 of Submerge had a command in it where you could pass it the names of files and the names of views, and it would pop open the window and do the stuff. And I talked to the developer way back in 2017. He was working on version 3 then. He hadn't gotten to that part yet. He had some advice on what to do. I'd have to go and troll through my emails again to see what that might have been. But maybe compare selected files would do what I want. Now, I'd imagine that that's actually happening if I did this. I might probably see submerge, compare selected files there. And if I did that, I can see those two things. So that's kinda what we want, really. One of the nice things about this, by the way, is that it shows you the two lines on the bottom so that if it's a really long line, you can actually see what the intraline difference was, which is a nice thing. So that might actually be something that's handy for us. So let's go ahead and I'm going to open this diff externally. Now, uh-oh, what did I do? Oh, don't tell me I just released a version what's broken, man. That's not cool. This totally worked before. I knew there was going to be a problem with this thing. Now we're totally going to see that update there. Well, I guess we got to figure what went wrong there. Error while diffing. I'm pretty sure that is this is going to appear. So global name view in prepare argstict. It's not listed in there, so I must have boned it up when I fixed the working dir here. Yep. This got crunk merged is what it got. Son of a booch. I think it's supposed to look like so, because we get the path as the directory name of that, and if it's a red directory, we go to it. That is, I knew something like that was going to happen. Okay, let's go ahead and quit that and restart it. I mean, we can still salvage this. I was playing around with stuff and did not back it all out, apparently. Okay, that's good. So how cool for me that I already committed that. So, whoops. Smurge open repository. Stage that hunk. Fix a bonehead test case that slipped into the merge. And fixing the working directory code. I was trying a few different ways to see which I liked better. And no, can't do that. Left to change in place, yeah. To be clear, when I said that I tested all that stuff, what I meant is the actual ability for it to execute the diff tool. That part works. I tested it with that broken code. So let's commit that. That has to now, oh, that's unstable, huh? Yeah, okay, so we'll push that to origin and push it to GitHub. Now we have to come back to the GitHub page and go to the code and go to releases and edit this, change this. Can I delete that tag and then recreate it? I think I can. Although I don't know how you might pull that off, to be perfectly honest. The clock's ticking. If there was anything that was going to make that notice it before it happened, this would be it. Okay, so that is probably not something that I can actually do, huh? Okay, how about this? What if I did a pull or a fetch? Will some tags show up in here? Can I delete this tag? Yes. What's going to happen? This is going to be great. And then we can, sheesh. Create tag 1.2.0. That's not going to work, is it? Because it's going to need to be forced because there's already one there, I suppose. Well, let's find out what happens. And if I looked at the history for this thing, the last commit was that. No, that did not do what I wanted it to do. Oh, I got to push the tag. That's why. That's why that didn't go. That's gonna fail. Yeah. So bash cd local source OverrideAudit git push tags for git push GitHub. Now there's two tags there probably, so that's probably not good for anybody. Let's also git push GitHub stable just to make sure that commit is actually there. Okay, so if we look at the code, The last commit is this one. No, it's not. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong branch. Excuse me. Stable branch. The last commit was 3 minutes ago. Fix a bonehead thing that slipped through. If we went over to here, tags. That points to this commit, and that commit is that commit, so that's probably fixed now, but we'll find out. And over here, that still seems to be okay. Okay, I think we might have recovered from that one, so let's I think we need to check out legacy, and then stable, merge stable into legacy with a fast forward just to bring it up like so. And then we can push legacy to GitHub. And we can push legacy to origin. Thusly, now everything's all up to date there. There's master way down there. There's our nice little version tags. That's version 1.2. All right, let's get on with our lives before we break anything else. You saw it here first when this goes horribly, horribly wrong. Well, I want to just, verify this whole bad boy. That's the, again, that's this commit C6ED. We look at code. We look at releases. And the latest release is version 1.2 with C6ED. Says it introduces external diff. That's that one, so life is good in that case. We get back to what we were doing. Maybe we'll see if we break this in another way. Now, what was I going to do? I was going to open this diff in an external window, and what we want to do is, I don't know if I can do this. Save left pane as, store it in my home directory, say. Shipped default paste from history.py. Now that version has that little thing in there that makes the file name temporary, because you might want to do this more than once. We'll save that there. Now I'm going to quit. So just to test this, I'm going to open a file. One thing I want is paste from history. Whoops, paste from history in default. That's this one. Yeah, whoops. Okay, that's my code. And from my home directory, we want the shipped, that one there. So there's two things that are open in this window. And we might also want to snag this and put it in this window as well. Boop. Spin that up and say, move that over there. Okay. So, what did I say that thing was? Compare paths? No. Compare relative. Compare selected files. It's a window command. So if I did window dot run command submerge compare selected files, and I believe the args would be files like so. I don't know that paths are necessarily needed, so the first one, the one on we want first, let's say, is this one, with its big long path. And the second one that we want is this one. Oh, and while I'm thinking of it, File Manager plugin probably does the same thing. Okay. Window run command. Oh, whoops. Did I do something wrong there? Window run command. Yes, I did. Probably should have did that. Please select two files or directories to compare. Oh, shoot. Well, you know what we can do? We can. Oh, wait, which window was I in? That one, I suppose? Yeah. I wonder. I don't normally like to do this. Shift default and that one. And yeah, it's not possible from there, huh? Okay. Did this do anything yet? Nope. So what I'm trying to do here basically is see, can I use this compare selected files thing to do the diff. It looks like it's coming from the sidebar. In order to test this actually, what I need to do, and again I keep losing that. I do not want to do that. I hate that open file display. I don't need to be reminded what files I have open because I usually can just look at the tabs if I care, or if I don't, I do that in this particular case. So let me take a drink of water here while I ponder this. And we need this to be in its own folder. So let's say anything in here. Yeah, we don't want to do that, do we? Here, that'll do. Move that one to here, and from .config Sublime Text 3 packages default. Paste from history. Paste that here, and make sure that thing is the okay. I'll close that one. Nope. Do that, and then subl dot. Oh, that did not do what I forgot to do the -a. Shoot. Well, let's go ahead and do that then, shall we? Because I already have that other thing open. Oh, shoot. I had the wrong window focused. This is not my day. You know what I'm saying? Not my day. Try it again. Okay. Now, I'm going to have to edit the project here, I suppose. Pretty sure that is nothing at all what I want here. Actually, I could have said this. Oh, that one's not actually in there, huh? Oh. Oh well. Nevertheless. No problem. So sublime.log commands true. I'm not sure if this will work, but let's find out. So that did something. More or less what I want. It's smart enough to use that. So what's the ish here? Files. contains the name of the left file and the name of the right file, and paths contains the name of the left file and the name of the right file. So basically, what I did should have worked. Let's turn command logging off, because that'd be annoying as hell. What I did let's go ahead and close that. What was it, this window? No, it was this window. When I did this, if I copied all of that and then said paths and pasted it in, then when I run this command, home T Martin, oh yeah, because it's not in that location anymore. Oh, fudge ripple. Home T Martin. Okay, this one's in test, and this one is in. If you've ever heard me say in any of these streams, and I would bet that you have, that the surest way to find a bug in your code is to copy and paste it somewhere. As we can see, the same thing applies to samples as well. That seems to do exactly what a person might want. Now, it does let me edit that file. So I'm going to quit out of there. This might actually work. Now, what I'm not testing here is what happens if this file is in the temp folder and not here. Maybe that doesn't matter, though. One thing I do want to test is if I did this and then reran that command. Can I edit this file? Yes, but trying to save the file blows stuff up. Well, you can't have everything, right? So that's one thing. Does it work if this folder is not open? That's also something we need to know. So if I remove folder from project here, now it's just these two files in this window. If I ran that same command, still seems to work. So that's good. Let's close that. Let's jump over here. How about now? Is it now? Nope, but it has been last seen 2 hours ago, so we're getting close. What if I did that the way I had done it before? So what if I copied this shipped file to temp, like so? And now in this window with those files not open, in fact, I'll even close that one just to see. If the file on the left was, what did I even copy it to? Did I just to temp? Yes, okay. Because I usually use temp bob, as you may have seen. If this file was in temp, but spelled correctly and shipped default paste, and then that one, and then this one was temp, and again spelled wrong, that still seems to be doing what one might expect. Now, what we really don't know here is how quote-unquote safe that is, because I don't think this is a command that's actually documented. I haven't looked yet. Another issue with this is we don't know when this window gets closed, so we can't clean up that temporary file when we're done. So that's maybe, I mean, we could kind of hack our way around it by saying that we could like capture all of the windows before we run the command, all the windows after we run the command. Then we'd know the window ID of one of these things and be able to close it later. But then we'd have to persist that, because what if you quit while the diff is open? I'm not even sure if Sublimerge handles that properly. We could try to wait and see a new window pops up and add an event handler. We could look at code to see if there are any settings applied to this. I don't even know how much that matters, realistically speaking. So before we proceed, reload that bad boy. No, still no. We'll leave that open. Sublimerge.com. Sublimerge 3. Documentation. This was last updated in October. I would imagine if we were gonna see something in here, and is this all, they're all different files. Okay, so let's back that up. In file diff view, okay. What's that say? Macros. Excuse my diff. Oh, maybe this is something. Oh, look, it totally thinks you should use Sublimerge diff views. Huh. Start a new window, wait there, file my file output. I think that means, let's see how it looks for Git. But Sublimerge diff views totally looks like the thing we want. Now it looks like their file, the base file, my file output. That's for Git, or sorry, Subversion. If we wanted to use it as the Git merge tool, left, right, command. Left read only true, right read only true. That's handy. Let's see what that does. In this window, well, not that window, sorry. Remember, I can fiddle that all I want, close without saving. I go over, whoops, here, and add in as an argument left read only. Now, I'm not sure how well that'll work, because if we do look here, diff views, oh, it takes keyword arguments. Okay. What was I looking at? That's a different command. I'm using a different thing here, am I? Sublimerge compare selected files is what I'm doing. So that won't work there. But diff views might work. Okay, so this is definitely going to blow up because it doesn't take that argument. Sublimerge. And again, if we look at this documentation here, if we did that as a two-way, the left and the right and diff views, does it transform the window or does it do something else? So let's actually see what happens. So I'm going to copy that. And okay, this is our main override audit window. We can go ahead and close that. We can get that back anytime we want. Okay, so here's that window. So if I drop to the terminal, the command that it's doing is that. And if I said that the left file was, I'm not gonna, it was temp shipped. I got more than one of those. Oh, yeah, because I had a lot of crashes while I was fixing stuff. Shipped default paste from history.py is the one file, and the right file is home/.config sublime text 3 packages default paste from history, and run the command diffuse left and right. Now what I'm also going to do, and I don't even know if this will work, I'm going to sublime.log commands true. The way that's saying create a new window makes it seem like it's going to create a window, it's going to open those files in it, and then it's going to run that command. So we should get a new window with our diff in it if I do this. And we do, and this file is read-only nicely, and this one is, oh, I did not specify the appropriate argument. We would probably want to say, oh, sorry, the default should be false there. I used his example. So I can actually do that. I can't go that way, but I can go this way if I want. I can undo that. So that actually seems like it might do what we want. So let's see if we can get something working with that. How are we doing over here? Anything? Still no. I might have broken it hardcore. But until that number goes down below 2, we know it hasn't finished crawling, and we're in the O's, so we're probably near the end of the list. Okay, so let's quit that. Save, close without saving? Yes, please. So let's think about what we want our little plugin to do here. And as a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's say create a new plugin. Nope. And do we want this to be a window command? Nah, we probably do. I'm gonna turn that off again before I go quietly at saying. Let's say we want our class test diff command, which is a window command, and its run method takes as arguments base file and override file, like so. And what would we actually do here? Well, if we zank that, that's not the correct one, is it? No, it's not. We need the other one, and it's gone. That's okay. We can look in the console and see what we did there. I'll just copy that whole shebang. As a matter of fact, let's get rid of all that stuff. Oh, whoops. That's not smart if you want to do that, is it? Okay, and we don't need to wait for it. We got the left file, open the left file, open the right file. So I think the order that we open the files in matters. And then this is the part where it's running the command, which is that, and that could be a little cooler, but that's okay. So let's actually comment that, zoom this pane so we can see all that. And the first thing we need to do is, let's say sublime.run command new window. That seems like it does what we want. And then we can say the window is equal to sublime.active window, because once that executes, the new window has become active. And then we can say window dot, oh shoot, you know what? We need the window dot open file. Yeah. Do. So all we care about here, I would imagine, is the name of the file. It's going to open it and return the view. That's cool. It's cool, yo. It's cool. So window dot open file, base file, and window dot open file, override file, and then window dot run command. Submerge diff views, and the arguments we're going to pass are left read only true and right read only false, like so. And we'll save that as untitled because we don't care, and add a key binding for, we no longer need that one because we have our own thing. So test diff, like so. And let's see what happens when I press the key. Oh, yeah, I guess it would help if I actually modified that key binding to not be stupid, huh? I'm the smart party. User default Linux key map. Okay. We actually need some of that type action. And we need a base file, which is temp and then something. This. And an override file, which is home slash tmartin slash dot config slash sublime dash text dash 3 slash packages slash default slash paste from history dot py. Oh, stoop nagel's gonna stoop. There we go. How about now? File not found. Oh, whoops. I believe that's what I meant to do, huh? Okay. File not found. Oh, did I add it twice? Oh, good gravy. And read only and well, that seems like that might actually do what we want. So that's actually kind of cool. Okay, well, let's see how we might. Let's go ahead and do that. Close without saving. I'm going to put that window on this desktop for now and create a new one over here. And that one can be OverrideAudit. Okay, oops, I rolled it up. I hate when I do that. And that one, that one, that one, and still no. Okay, so Spawn an external process waiting for it to complete cleaning up temporary files. External diff thread is actually what does this, but it gets the base and the override as files, and this is actually what cleans that thing up. So if we were to look at this to see where it's referenced, like so, how are we doing here? When you do this, this has to happen in a thread because we need to extract that package out and we don't want to hang the API while or the Sublime thing while we do that. Extract package, join. External diff spec is always setting external diff. We know this is only going to happen now. If external diff spec equals submerge, then something else that. Okay. And what we actually want here is that code. So let's say we do diff with submerge and we pass it base name and override name as its two arguments. Instead of that, copy that, jump way up here. Decorate, open, delete, thread freshen, thread diff. Let's say we did it here. And we called this base file override file. And need a little extra stuff here. Diff the base file and the override file by using submerge to do the operation. This requires that submerge actually be installed and uses the documented command for executing submerge via version control systems as the diff tool. Now the thought occurs that if you really wanted submerge support, you could do it by doing the exact same submerge command as the diff tool and just use subl and then it would run that. So this may or may not actually be necessary. I might actually want to try that first. Now that's probably, oh no, that's right. That'll actually work. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to copy those lines in thusly and fix their indent a bit because they used to be a class method. Create the window, open the files, run the command. And that also seems to have worked. So for our purposes, that's what I have over here in this other window on the right-hand desktop. So I'm going to close that now so that it doesn't block me from viewing the chat any longer. And just for giggles, we might want to try and copy this into our config just to see what happens. So if I said preferences, package settings, yeesh, Twitchy mouse is twitchy. Override audit settings. Okay, now if I came down here, That's not the thing. That's the thing. We want to do subl minus n. This would be dollar base. This would be dollar override. The command is that with that, and that needs to look like that. Now we're going to zoom this just to see. I'm going to comment that and say shell command is this, subl minus n. That needs to be, oops. Ah, harsh my buzz, bro. That needs to look like that. That needs to look like that. Now, there's one of those, and I think that should work. I mean, I guess we'll find out, won't we? Let's go over here and see what happens when I open this externally. It says it's running subl minus n. Oh, I didn't put the dollar sign, so that did not work. What if I put a dollar sign in front of this thing so that it knew? What if I did that? Now, oh, okay, yeah, I think it's not happy because of this. Let's see what that does. Still no, huh? One of the more confusing things about this operation is it thinks that this command is JSON. So maybe I didn't need two of them. Maybe I don't have enough of them. Yeah. Well, we could try it a couple of times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. I mean, it's still valid JSON, but I don't think that's going to work. Even if that did work, that is a little awful to assume someone would want to do. So let's say we actually don't want to do that. Make sure we put this back to the way it was. Okay, that's good. Did we get there yet? Nope. Okay, now I probably shouldn't have done that, huh? Because theoretically, if I was to go preferences, settings, I should not have closed that. I forgot that I already implemented that particular type thing. Go down to here, pick settings, and for this, oops. There's not a good way to do that per platform either. So that might also be an issue with how this might work. But if I did that, now I think it should still appear there because it's a string. And when I do this, boop, well, that totally does the thing. That's read only. That's the stuff. So on the face of it, that actually works. Now, what we actually need to do here is verify that this command actually exists before we actually try to invoke it. Because if someone didn't have Sublimerge installed, this would just result in creating a window and loading two files in it in a way that would probably be quite irritating. We might want to wonder, yeah. Let's say we might. Oops, excuse me, I bumped my microphone. Do I have any coffee left? I have a little bit here. Let me finish this bad boy up. Here's the thing. Do we want a person to be able to say that they want to externally diff using Sublimerge, but only on Linux, and use Beyond Compare for other things? Do we want the external diff to be a list, and then you could select one, sort of the way a build system works? Because maybe you might have Sublimerge and you might have Beyond Compare, and maybe you decide one of them's going to work better than the other. You don't want to go in there and fiddle that setting around. These are things to consider, and I don't know that we want to necessarily do that in the short term. Well, we would also need to be able to determine if Sublimerge was actually installed. And I think we'll find, if I did a package report and move that over here so we can see it better, if we looked at Sublimerge, it's an installed package, but it's also an unpacked package because it creates, I can even do this, a folder in the packages folder that has a lot of its stuff extracted out. And to be honest, I'm not 100% sure why that is the case. But if we checked for the existence of a packages Sublimerge 3 directory, or maybe check to see if this file exists in there, then we would know that the package exists. We could actually use that version number. So that's a way to go with this. We are running fairly close to the end of the stream. It'd really be nice if this updated to version 1.2 over here while we were watching is still in the stream. Then you get to see the whole end-to-end process there. And well, actually, if we really wanted to see the full end-to-end process, if I went to here, nope, excuse me. If I went to here, nope, that no, oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. This thing, this one here. There's this. This is what the channel entry looks like for this package. So the thing you do to actually get your package into package control is not this. You need to, there's a repository on the package controls GitHub. There, Wilbon's GitHub, I can't remember exactly which one it is, that has just a list of all of these. You have to fork that repository, add your information, verify that it works, and submit your package for review. And, excuse me, volunteers look at it and make sure everything is cool, and then they merge it in and you're done. Now, I've had mine split out into my own file so I can fiddle things like the release tags here and stuff. This isn't something that they will do for just anybody. I imagine you have to show that you really understand the ecosystem because this is an awful lot of power. But that's the general, and that's sort of the same version of the file that's in my repository there, but with extra rules. And some of the stuff has already actually been done. For example, I set my home page so that it doesn't go to the GitHub repository. It's got some labels. One of the things we're going to change when we go to version 3 is this number to make the minimum version higher than what it is currently, like 3.0, 3.1, whatever the most stable version is at the time, maybe one back or so, just so that we can use more recent functionality and not worry that it's not already there. And okay, so in any case, that's just me trying to pad out some time here because I don't want to do this next part. Which was, I don't care about output view. I don't care about find results. And we're done with that. So we're just got this. Let's close the sidebar. There's that. Now, external diff. That's getting the setting. And there's some stuff. And here the action, if the action to take is open external, return true if is diff, and OA setting external diff is a true value, else false. So that needs to change so that we validate things as appropriate. And I think that's pretty much the only thing. So yeah, defaults to false. So let's actually skip to here and copy that line. Now, I'm not sure what the best place to do this would be. Maybe up here in one of these OAs. I might say def OA can diff externally. Okay, so if OA setting external diff okay, so right away we've already got this part done. If this setting equals, if this works, then do that. Yeah, if OA setting is a non-false value, then we can continue. Otherwise, we definitely can't do this, and we can clean that up a little bit. So now, we actually want to grab that value, huh? Yeah. Spec equals OA setting external diff. Okay. Excuse me. So we do that. Let's try it this way. Now we might say if spec equals submerge, then stuff. Elif spec do we really like that way? If spec, yeah, then we want to do stuff. If spec equals submerge, else other stuff, and then yeah, see, does that look nice? I'm not sure that that necessarily looks nice. This needs to determine if the package exists. We could just say true here. We can always expand this later. Because I was thinking it could actually verify that you passed a dictionary and the dictionary had the right keys or whatever, but it's kind of my druthers there. And the version file, okay. That describes the package version. So we would probably want sublime.packages path. V file is os.path.join sublime packages path and submerge 3 and version, let's say. And does this still work even if that part's broken? Yeah, it does. Swank. Okay. So I gotta assume I'm importing OS. I am. Okay. That's good. If I open the sidebar, you can see that there's actually mini diff there, but there seems to be some sort of weird display bug right now that's stopping that from working. Return os.path.isFile v file. Actually, yeah. Let's do it this way. Package dir is that. Whoops. Oh, crap. That's going to make me unhappy, I betcha. It's going to bother me until I determine if it is correct or not. Oh, and I can do this, I suppose. Oh, wow, that is a ugly, ugly font. Once again, oh, package dev doesn't like this thing, huh? Well, there's not a lot I can do about that. Settings listener attribute has no attribute. Oh. Oh yeah, this thing is supposed to have cool stuff over there, isn't it? This is a package dev interacting with submerge problem. Okay, that makes sense. The font face used to be 12.25. Okay, that's what I thought. I think the things get a little screwball. Let's close that file. So here's how we determine if OverrideAudit can diff externally or not. This performs an introspection on the external diff setting. Now, for now, I'm going to say that we saw me, go over code there. I'm not sure if I don't think I was talking out loud because I was thinking of the ramifications of this. What I'd really like to do is join Sublime Packages path, submerge 3, and version as a file name, read the version from the file, and make sure that its minimum version is the version where we know that this command actually exists, although I think it's probably been there for a while now. And only in that case do we do this. And if that path doesn't exist, if that file doesn't exist, if the version is too low, we say no. But for now, we're not going to do that. And similarly, this could actually be doing more verification on the settings. Now, right now, it just assumes that if it's not false, that it's a proper settings object. So in that case, this could be smart enough to say, okay, so this gets the setting only if it's a truthy value, which it would only be if it was a string or an object, say, but it could also be a list. It could be a number. We don't know. So if it's equal to submerge, then we specifically only say that this is valid if this package directory is a directory that exists. Otherwise, this doesn't work. And as a matter of fact, now that I'm thinking about it, this is still not good. We need to do a little bit more work here. sublime.load settings, and we want to load preferences.sublime settings. And can I actually say I can? Okay, and ignored equals settings dot get ignored packages. Then we do this. And okay, let's change this to that. Let's say. Now I'm starting to think that maybe that isn't the way to go. But there's a submerge 2. So, well, and actually, you know what, that might actually work with that. So we'll just say that we'll do this for the time being. This isn't, the final version of the code. Not in ignored. So what's the idea here? Does that still, does that load up? Yep, okay. So get the setting if it's a truthy type value. Oh, actually I might say if not spec, return false instead. So if it wasn't a truthy value or if it was specifically false, do that. And we don't have to do this. Then we can do this. And what we might want is if is instance spec stir, then this. So if the spec is a string, if the spec is submerge 3, then we get the load the user's preferences and also the default preferences and blah blah blah. Get the list of ignored packages out of it, and then we figure out what the package directory for submerge is, which would be Sublime packages path submerge 3, and we only say that we, in this case, can we externally diff if their unpacked package folder exists, which means that the package has been installed, because submerge always creates that folder whether you want it to or not. It's the genesis for the argument that allows you to ignore packages for the purposes of containing overrides, because it contains overrides on purpose. So we only do that if that folder exists and submerge is not in the list of ignored packages, because if you've ignored submerge, we still don't want to create a window because the command won't do anything. And that's probably good. And here we can say return false. Now we could actually try to log something here, but I don't want to because can diff externally is going to get invoked every time the context command needs to see if it's visible or enabled or not, and that's going to happen every time you right click, and we'll spam the ever-loving crap out of the console if we do that. So if we wanted to do that, then we would do something clever like do it once at startup and then also every time settings change by setting up a settings listener. But I don't care about that for the time being. These are the sort of niceties that could be added in version 2. The version 1 external diff is supposed to provide the functionality and then we can buff it up later. Speaking of, okay, that actually thinks that it's updated. So let's finish this and then we'll go ahead and take a look at that. There's extra lines here. To do should verify that the setting is a valid object. Maybe we won't make that a to do. We'll just do that. This allows us the ability to use multiple packages to do this. Like perhaps submerge 2 has a similar thing. In which case we would need to change the other code around a little bit, the other one, but that's okay. So we're gonna do that. Now again, if we looked for that appropriate code, now did I actually modify around there? Diff with, yes, I must have if I did this. So if we looked at where this is referenced, then it's down in here. Override audit, context, open external. Yeah, that's the thing we're actually looking for. There's the description, there's the is visible. True if is diff and OA can diff externally, else false. Okay. I think that kind of does what we want. And just because we're using submerge, we'll do this. So what have we done in this file? We have created an OA can diff externally method, which gets the setting. If it's a falsy value, then it returns false right away. Otherwise, if it's a string, then it does extra stuff. And if that string is submerge3, then it will return true if there's a submerge3 folder. And now that I've done that, we may want to verify that that's actually what that folder is named. I think it is. I don't think it has a capital M. And also the package is not in the list of ignored packages. Any other string, it says no. Otherwise, it assumes that it's valid. And there's now a diff with submerge. This should actually probably be named diff with submerge 3, I would imagine, because that's what this is doing. And we'll add a 3 here to that as well. And here we say if external diff spec is submerge 3, then diff with submerge 3. Otherwise, launch the external diff tool as we always did. And then when we want to know if this set command is visible, we say this command is always visible if this is a diff and that functionality says we can diff externally, otherwise we can't. So it seems like all of this stuff. Now, just to make absolutely certain that this is going to work the way we want, let's quit out of Sublime entirely and then restart like so and do that. Now, I need my settings open, so I'm going to bring that over here and then drop that like so, so we can just see what I have here. So right now, external diffing should not be allowed. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that. So right now, the default was false, so external diffing should not be allowed. And I don't actually need that file open anymore. Here it should not be, and it's not. In the context menu, in the tab, it should not be, and it's not. And if I did this, we don't see open diff externally there either. If I change this to the string, then where it used to, it would have enabled it because that's not a true value. It's still not there. It's still not there. It's still not there. If I change it from, oh yeah, that's not going to work, is it? That, and put this back like so, then it is in that menu, it is in this menu, and it is in this menu. Open diff externally. And if I pick it, it opens in meld because that's what I have set up. And lastly, if that was over here still commented out, and this was set to submerge but 3, like so, but disable package. Oh, sorry, that's not the right thing. And I disabled submerge 3, then it's not available there. It's not available there. It's not available here. If I enable, oh, and again, I'm used to typing that key now. If I enable Submerge 3, like so, now it is available in there. It is available there. It is available here. And when I pick it, it creates the now shipped default paste from history to blah 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 dot py read only, and that's good. That's good. We can actually see the stuff. We could remove that if we wanted to. We could actually come over here and say, I want that to be 15, and then say, oh, you know what? No, we don't. We want that to be 45. That's nice. And we can also see the other change made down here, which of course is that instead of a pop-up menu, I use a quick panel so I can see more stuff. But we can go ahead and close that without saving. So those changes all seem to work nicely. Now again, there's, excuse me, this whole setting of, do we want to toggle this? Do we want it to be an extra thing? Will it work with Submerge 2? Don't know. But that is actually pretty good because that is the investigate submerge integration, and the answer is yeah, actually it will work. I don't know if I was trying to use that particular command last time. I seem to recall Submerge Pro 2 had a command that took like 6 arguments, and you could specify not only the file names on either side, you could specify whether they were read-only or not, and you could specify the text to use in the tab. And I gather that the new Submerge 3.1, it expects a window with 2 files open in it. It uses those tab names. It splits the window and applies the appropriate layout to do what it needs to do. Inside of that window, it converts that window into a submerge window, and it just takes those arguments to make them read-only or not. So let's go back to Sublime Text 3 3189 and see what happens here. Because if I start this package control should hopefully notice the thing, and boom, there we go. Implement the ability to open an override diff in an external diff tool via the external diff setting. This command is available from the command palette and the context menu of override diffuse. Now, I don't know that that part worked. I clearly don't have any overrides in place, and package resource viewer is currently broken in this dev build. I think because of, oh, now that I think of it, I wonder if it's doing the same thing that's neither here nor there. Let's say exec, and then we save as this and we put it into data packages. Oh yeah, right, that's up here now, isn't it? Still getting used to this new GTK3 thing. Into default, and in that folder we called it exec.py, and we save and we quit and we reopen so that we can actually edit the thing if we want. And now there is an override, but there's no changes in it. And what if we did this? Save that, and now we can do Alt-O to swap over to the other thing, and it can't diff it externally. I'm gonna, for our purposes, splonk this out into its own window just so we can see it a little nicer. We can see exactly what happened there in that override, and of course, whoops, yeah. There's no open diff externally in there yet, but if we did overpref, everything is default here, but we could do this. External diff is equal to an object, and the object is shell command meld dollar base dollar override. And maybe we also want to do that just to make sure. And that, just to make sure. And if we have done that and we come back to here, we can open diff externally and the tool opens. So we successfully patched the build and no one's any the wiser except anybody that watches this live stream. And with that, we can totally see our little override in place. So we have successfully done a fair bit of stuff. Now, that is pretty sweet. As a matter of fact, I might even go out of my way to say delete override exec.py. Want to delete that? Yeah, I want to delete that. I don't need that here. I got my own problems over here, but I will leave that setting in place. And now, did I not delete that? Uh-oh. Oh, did I say no and I should have said yes? Oh, this version of Sublime can't send items to the trash. I'm not surprised because I don't have access to the root. Well, I think my other Sublime might do the same thing. Oh, that's okay. That's not a Sublime problem. That's not an override audit problem. That's a XFCE or the window environment is stupid problem. There's not a lot to be done about that here. I can fix it manually by doing this. In any case, that is going to do it for this stream. Now, I need to add this new functionality to the documentation, which I'm not going to do tonight. But I also need to go to the forum and make a release note so people know that this release has happened. And that's probably going to, well, I guess I could do that tonight before I go to bed. Oh, my shoulder is really killing me, though. I need to take some Tylenols to make sure that I can sleep. But nevertheless, we are well on our way to version 2. Now, I'm going to set up the next live stream, but I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do there. We're going to play it by ear for the week. I do want to work a little bit more on maybe getting this diffing with Sublimerge in. Maybe I could verify that it would also work with Sublimerge 2 and factor that existing code a little bit to be a little nicer than what it is. But that's really as far as I want to go with this. Then we can work on cutting over to version 2. So that's going to be exciting for there. Part of the version 2 functionality is things like adding hover pop-ups so that when you hover over a package name or an override name, it gives you information about that thing, and that package and the commands that you can invoke on it and things of that nature, which maybe redacts the need to use the context menus to do the same thing. Or we can put an override audit item in the context menu and put everything in it the way Sublimerge does, because you're not going to be using it as often. That menu is kind of cluttery right now. With all the items that can possibly be in there. We got to take that code that we just added. All of these commits between master and here are changes that happened in version 1 that aren't in version 2 yet. We got to worry about that. I would like to integrate hyperhelp and make that a proper dependency. We want to maybe add some other help and hover pop-ups, like to tell you what the S in a shipped package stands for, but that requires a little bit more syntax work. It's all sorts of exciting things that we could be working on in our Sublime Text package development. But that's all I have for tonight, for tonight's live stream. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you have any questions about anything that happened in here, any other questions, in the comment section on Twitter at OdatNurd, on the forum, Sublime forum as well. What the hell? And remember to like and subscribe this channel and the other channel, depending on whether you want to see more videos from me or not. And I do plan on hoping to get the ability to record that custom build target video. There's going to be 2 of them either Monday or Tuesday. So expect that hopefully later in the week if I get time to edit the thing. It's probably going to be kind of crazy with this weird weather and how that changes the fundamental nature of the universe in a part of the world where snow is infrequent enough that everybody flips out when it happens. Remains to be seen. In any case, until next week or the next video, this is OdatNurd saying, have a sublime day. Also, stay sublime.